Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to learn more about the Draft Warner Center Cultural Amenities Master Plan. My name is Priya Mahendale from the Los Angeles City Planning. Today, I'm also joined by our project team from the Department of Cultural Affairs and the Lord Cultural Resources Consultant team for today's overview presentation, which will also be followed for time for Q&A after the presentation. We're also joined today by Elizabeth Enne, who's the Director of Planning and Land Use for Councilmember Bob Blumenfeld. I'd like to set aside, I see Elizabeth joining us. I'd like to invite her to make some intro remarks before we start the presentation. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Priya. On behalf of Councilmember Blumenfield, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joining tonight. Your input and your interest in this process is an important part of creating the Warner Center Cultural Amenities Master Plan. And I want to thank the Planning Department and Lord, our consultant, for all the hard work that they've put into this, and also the board who have volunteered their time, folks from the community, to participate in this as well. So let's get started, and just thanks everyone for joining tonight.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So before we get started, I also wanted to let everyone know that today's presentation is being recorded, and the recording will be available on our project website in the next week or so. We'll drop a link to the website in the chat box shortly for reference. So if you have to leave before the meeting is over, please know that the recording will be available for you to check out later. We can go to the next slide. So I wanted to provide a little bit of background on the cultural amenities master plan before we turn it over to Lord Cultural, the consultant group. And just a little bit of background, a lot of folks might be familiar with this, but just as a refresher, the City Council adopted the Warner Center 2035 specific plan several years ago in 2013. And that plan established land use regulation, and it also established mobility and cultural amenities fees on new development projects, and it set up funds to collect the designated fees. And the plan also required that a cultural amenities master plan be created and approved in order to spend the funds collected from the cultural amenities fees. So over the past 2 years, the Los Angeles City Planning, along with Department of Cultural Affairs, have been working with Lord Cultural Resources to develop the draft cultural amenities master plan that will be presented today. So this plan identifies current cultural assets in Warner Center, also identifies areas for growth and strategies to address challenges. And once the plan is adopted by the City Planning Commission, it will help guide the spending decisions of the newly formed Cultural Amenities Committee. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Lord Cultural Resources team to walk through the draft Warner Center camp. Thanks, Holly.
Great. Thank you, Priya, and thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for all who are joining us tonight. My name is Holly Shen, and I'm a Senior Director at Lord Cultural Resources and have been leading this project. So I'll kind of get us kicked off with some background about our process and where we are. And then my colleagues, Erica and Tasha, who are also on the call tonight, will also share some information. Next slide, please. So Lord has a practice of starting all of our meetings with a land acknowledgement, which we would like to do now. We are currently located on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Tongva Gabrielino. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. Next slide. So the point of today, as Priya was mentioning, is to really provide you all with an overview of this work and our planning process to date. We are excited to share what we've learned. We want to walk you through some of our recommendations, and then have time to listen to your comments and respond to questions if there are any questions. And we'll also share what next steps are. Yeah. So Lord Cultural Resources, just a little background about our firm. We're a cultural planning firm headquartered in Toronto. We've been around since 1981, and actually was started by a husband-wife team who worked in the public sector and really saw a need for there to be culture integrated into municipal planning. And we have an ethos of knowledge sharing through books and other platforms. Next slide. This is just an overview of the project team. On the left, again, Los Angeles City Planning Division, as well as the Department of Cultural Affairs. Felicia Filer, the director of the Public Art Division, is here with us, as well as Tanya Picasso, the arts manager for the Arts Development Fee Program. And then we have Priya, Courtney, and also Lauren Paddock. And then on the LORD team, myself, my colleague Erica Rawls, who's based in Los Angeles, Tasha Hunter, who's also based in the LA area and Long Beach, and then our colleague Magdiel, who's not able to join us tonight, but she was providing a lot of support and research for this project from Toronto. Next slide. So really just a little bit about the Cultural Amenities Master Plan. I think the first slide after this is really, what is a cultural amenity? And really a cultural amenity can be sort of any feature, element, artwork, space, or program that contributes to or advances cultural life or expression. So it could be anything from physical infrastructure to temporary events, festivals, can be public art as well. So cultural amenities are designed to foster creativity, to encourage social connection and social cohesion, and to contribute to a sense of place for those who live, work, and play in the area. This is an overview of our planning process. We had a multi-phase evolution of the work, starting off with, background research and kickoff. We worked very closely with the city folks to develop an engagement strategy. So really figuring out who we were going to talk to, how we were going to reach them. And we'll share more details about that later. Then we conducted the outreach as well as the assessment, which included looking at the existing cultural amenities in Warner Center, and sort of assessing the layout and the distribution of those. And then we moved into sort of the development of vision and strategy for the plan, and the development of the master plan itself. And now I'm going to introduce my colleague Tasha Hunter, who will walk us through the existing cultural amenities. Tasha, over to you.
Thank you, Holly, and hello, everyone. So about the existing cultural amenities assessment. So Corey Henry and the consultant team conducted current state of the existing cultural amenities, which included background research on ADF, which is artist development fees, and non-ADF funded public artworks within that Warner Center area, including the artists that produced the works and the year the project was commissioned or acquired. And also it includes descriptions of the current sites and conditions of these artworks. The consultant team surveyed that entire Warner Center area through an in-person site visit and toured with our project team in March of 2023. So here is a mapping of the existing cultural amenities inventory. As you can see that there are 17, the majority of which are in our cultural district downtown area. One in River, one in Topanga, 2 in the Uptown area. And it also lists the artists and the artwork. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are our key findings of those existing cultural amenities. There is a history of successful event-based programs. And secondly, the cultural amenities are concentrated in only a few of those districts, which you saw on that map. Third, there's limited public accessibility to existing amenities in the Commerce District. Many of those are inside of office spaces or office parks. Fourth, there are maintenance needs and visibility constraints for the amenities in the downtown and uptown districts. And the final key finding is independent cultural projects enhance the broader experience. So a lot of our work also involved the public engagement aspect, and in our research, we asked what was an event or somewhere where we could really, on our timeline, capture a large and diverse audience, and we were informed about the concerts in the park that the Valley Cultural Foundation has inside the Warner Center Park. Next slide. And through that, we set up at these concerts and these amazing concerts in the park, June, and our engagement process was June until October of 2023. We held 9 stakeholder interviews. We completed 336 surveys, and the survey range was from very young folks all the way to our older adults of the community as well as visitors. And in those engagements, we were able to get a lot of information about what folks wanted to see in the community, what they wanted to see as additional cultural amenities. We provided some language, we provided some photos of different type of artworks, from murals to beacon art to functional art that could have been in the park, and they were able to answer a bunch of those questions. And with that, next slide, please. Here are the key findings from our public engagement. There's a high demand for live programming. Residents and visitors really do value the current attractions, but they want more live performances and more in-person events. They spoke about the need for additional venues and a cultural infrastructure. Second, the momentum and growth potential. This area, Warner Center area, is a transit-oriented district, and leading up to the Olympics in 2028, the Warner Center can and will attract creatives and cultural investments by integrating those cultural spaces. A couple of examples are artist studios and artist housing, with innovation, sustainability, and a growing creative economy. And the third finding is visibility and awareness are crucial. Proper awareness and outreach and marketing and communication will be instrumental to any development of cultural amenities or growth of cultural infrastructure. And low public awareness in the Warner Center area highlights the need for clear outreach, branding, and communication strategies. These are essential for the success of the Warner Center. Next slide, please. Okay. We were able to put together an advisory committee. It was a 5-member Warner Center Cultural Amenities Advisory Committee formed in April of 2025. And the committee is responsible for, the appropriate disbursement of Warner Center Cultural Amenities Trust Fund within the plan area. And this is according to the Warner Center Plan 2035. The advisory members were selected based on their expertise within the field, in their field. And the committee consists of performing and visual artists, an arts administrator, community stakeholder, and representatives from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Council District 3. And those members are, on the next slide, Shania Axios, who is a founder and CEO of Zawadi Cultural Collective, Desiree Perea, who is a community manager, Hub 101, Felicia Flyer, Director, Public Arts Division of Department of Cultural Affairs, Brad Rosenheim, President and CEO of the Rosenheim and Associates, Inc., May Sun, who's a local artist, and Tanya Picasso, Arts Manager, ADF Program, and City Art Collection. Thank you to the advisory committee for your time, service, and dedication. All righty.
Hey,
Next,
so I'll
Erica.
take it from here. The vision, values, and goals for this plan were informed by all of the previous phases of the planning process that we've gone through so far, including the research, an environmental scan, cultural trends, on the ground site survey, the assessment of existing amenities, the public engagement process, and conversations with the advisory committee who really provided valuable input on the priorities and future opportunities for this plan. Next slide, please. So this is the vision statement that was informed by the rest of this process, and I'll just take a moment to read it out loud. Warner Center is a thriving ecosystem where cultural amenities spark connection, inspire belonging, and build a stronger, more creative community through strategic partnerships and sustainable investment. Next slide, please. So in addition to the vision, the plan also outlines guiding values that reflect what we heard from the community, that Warner Center's cultural future should be rooted in creativity, connection, belonging, innovation, and inclusion. So the first guiding value is community connection and belonging, and this is really about strengthening the social fabric of Warner Center and providing cultural amenity opportunities that foster meaningful connection. The second guiding value is innovation and experimentation. This value prioritizes boldness and creativity. It encourages new ideas, temporary projects, and innovative approaches to cultural expression. The third is equity, inclusivity, and access. This value prioritizes the equitable distribution of opportunities and resources so that everyone can participate in Warner Center's cultural life. The next is visibility and regional recognition. This value aims to build a stronger cultural identity that highlights Warner Center's creativity and diversity and positions it as a recognized destination in the San Fernando Valley and beyond. And finally, the fifth value is placekeeping. This means really celebrating what's already here at Warner Center, the stories, the people, the landscapes, and what makes Warner Center unique, and supporting this culture that deepens a sense of connection between community and place. In addition to the values and the vision statement, the plan also outlines 4 big goals that kind of provide a roadmap for realizing Warner Center's cultural potential. So the first is to build local connection and belonging. So again, really supporting cultural initiatives that foster a sense of community and social cohesion. The second goal is to position Warner Center as a regional cultural destination by investing in visible, high-quality experiences like public art, live events, and creative innovation. The third is about sustainable partnerships for cultural development through co-creating cultural amenities in collaboration with city agencies, developers, artists, local arts organizations, and educational institutions. And finally, the plan aims to expand access through equitable and innovative cultural infrastructure. That means ensuring that cultural resources are distributed across Warner Center, accessible to everyone, and responsive to evolving community needs. So, using the vision, values, and goals as a guide, we established new cultural amenity typologies and approaches. And these typologies are really just categories for how we're thinking about cultural amenities in Warner Center. So the 4 primary and foundational categories through we're kind of conceptualizing, commissioning, and experience new cultural amenities in Warner Center are arts and cultural public programming, cultural facilities and spaces, public art, and partnerships. And each of these categories really comes directly from what we heard and learned throughout the rest of the planning process. So I'm going to go through each one by one and just talk a little bit more about what these mean. So the first typology is arts and cultural public programming, and it's really focused on the desire that we heard from community members for live and reoccurring events, things like performances, markets, and festivals that bring people together and create shared experiences and opportunities for people to gather. So this could include large-scale community events, live performances, as well as artists and residence programs and interactive programming like workshops and open studios. The next cultural amenity typology is cultural facilities and spaces. And this was another common thread that we heard throughout the planning process, that there's a need for more accessible and flexible venues and spaces for art making, performance, and practice, especially for smaller organizations and independent artists. So these kind of cultural facilities and spaces can take the form of galleries, performance venues, or programming spaces. And the last typology before we get to our approach is public art. And this is one of the most visible and tangible forms of expressing cultural identity of a place. And for that reason, public art can play a key role in placemaking, honoring the stories and characters of the area. So this can include digital and new media art, murals, environmental and transit art, gateway pieces, interactive and functional works. So there's many different forms that public art can take, and those are some of the subtypes listed on this slide. And then lastly, we identified an approach, which is partnerships. And this is something that really cuts across the three previous typologies, because partnerships can really support any of the other typologies, whether it's public art, programming, or facilities and spaces. But we wanted to highlight this as an approach because of the potential for cross-sector collaboration, and the way that it can encourage innovation and expand reach and impact. So I'm going to pass it on to Holly, who's going to walk us through an overview of the proposed opportunity sites.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you, Erica. So we can go to the next slide. In in our process, we wanted to sort of start by establishing some criteria for how we selected and prioritized sites. So I think the first thing we were really focused on was the visibility and accessibility. A lot of the amenities that are existing were, developed as part of the ADF, and so intended to, serve the users of that building. However, that led to some works not being fully accessible, or folks not being aware of them because they're kind of tucked away. And, if you're a visitor to the area, you might not be aware that they're there. So that was really one of our top priorities. We also obviously wanted the site selection to align with the goals and values that we've just articulated. So again, really focusing on things that can bring vitality and foster belonging and create a sense of place, create an identity, a cultural identity for Warner Center. And then also the idea of potential for impact, right? So programs or public art or facilities that are going to really have the biggest impact on folks that live and work and play in Warner Center. So this is a map of all of the proposed opportunity sites, and you can see that we've used the districts that were laid out, 8 districts laid out in the Warner Center 2035 plan. And what I'm going to do is we're not going to go through every single proposed opportunity, but within each district, we're going to highlight 1 or 2 of what we think are sort of the strongest, best ideas that were developed through this process. So next slide. So we'll start with, we combined the River District, was a very narrow geographic spread that just kind of went across the top of the Warner Center. And so we combined that with the North Village District, which is what you see in that kind of rounded bottom right part of the map. And there were 2 new cultural amenity opportunities here. The first being one at the Metro Canoga station, and the second being in the LA River Greenway. So this is the first one. So Metro Canoga station is a big station at in Warner Center, and we highlighted the idea of a public art, and particularly a beacon or gateway art. And beacon or gateway art is just a way of saying an artwork that really stands out in the built or natural environment and can be almost like a visual demarcation of a certain space and comes to be affiliated with that location. So the example we're showing on the left there is a beautiful artwork that was done as a wrap around a parking garage near an airport in San Jose. You can see it from the freeway. It's become sort of a visual touch point and a very beloved artwork. Another example is a sculpture in Los Angeles by Joseph Young. Again, something that's kind of striking and really demarcates, that you've entered a new area or you've arrived. And so we think that the photo on the right is what you're seeing when you kind of get out of Canoga Station right now. There is one existing artwork, I think, implemented by MTA. That's kind of a photographic work. But we think this would be a really great opportunity for Beacon or Gateway, something that signals to folks that they're here. They've come, they would be taking the bus rapid transit through that area, and it's well positioned for that type of artwork. Next slide. You can also see that there is the LA River Greenway at Varial Ave. So when you get off of the out at Canoga Station, there is a path that actually takes you up to the LA River, and there's a bike path and a footpath. And we think that this is a great opportunity for some type of community mural or sculpture. You can see two examples there on the left, and then what you currently see when you walk the River Greenway at Warner Center. So again, this could be a really great way to bring a lot of color and vibrancy to this area. There are a lot of folks that use that footpath and then that, walk or ride, bike or run along the river. And we think it would be a really great idea for there to be some kind of mural or smaller scale sculpture that could, kind of help to draw people to that area and to make it known that actually the Warner Center does have access to this footpath and this bike path to the LA River. Moving into the Uptown and Topanga districts, this is an interesting opportunity. So when Westfield Mall was originally built, there was a community center that was built as part of the sort of partnership and relationship with Westfield and the city. It was kind of provided as an amenity to the community. Actually, if you can go to the next slide. It is, you can see the building there on the right. It's largely unused, so it's a really great opportunity. I think folks can reach out to somebody at Westfield and potentially try to use the space. But when we were visiting it, doing our site visits, we didn't really see it activated ever. And it also has this great blank wall that could be a prime location for a mural. There could also be programming in the community center. It's in the parking lot of Westfield, but it's right by the streetscape, and so it's accessible. There's tons of parking, and it could be used for artist residencies or other kind of community art programs. And then moving into the downtown district and Topanga district in the south, there are a couple of opportunities here. And there are two that we wanted to highlight. So if you can go to the next slide. So the intersection of Irwin and Owensmith is right now there is an existing, you can see in the photo on the right, an existing sort of signage that says Warner Center. And it's pretty dated and, against the scale of the big buildings in the background, you can see it looks, kind of small. And so we think this would be another really great opportunity for a gateway type of public art. So I think this was where the old BRT kind of hub was, but it's not there anymore. But again, it's kind of affiliated with the entrance of Warner Center and could be a way to enliven that area. In the College District, there is an intersection at DeSoto Ave and Victory Boulevard, which is a very big, wide intersection with a lot of sort of expanse around it. And we think this would be a great location for a what we call an asphalt art kind of project. And asphalt art is really just any sort of paint or color treatment on pavement. And Bloomberg Philanthropies has done a lot of research around asphalt art, and they published a study in 2023 that essentially showed that asphalt art reduces traffic incidences and traffic fatalities because it causes cars to slow down, and it also makes it really clear which areas are in the crosswalk, which areas are for the cars, and which areas are for the pedestrians. So again, the photo on the right shows this big, busy intersection, and it's kind of also at the edge of the boundary of the Warner Center. So in addition to being a great location for, that intersection, it also could serve as another type of signal that you are in the Warner Center, right? Because it's kind of on the edge. Next slide. So Warner Park. Warner Park is actually a small part of what is considered the Park District. However, much of what's adjacent to the park is largely residential. And there is an opportunity to bring some type of temporary pop-up space that is smaller than the current band shell that could be used for smaller community groups. And then there's also an opportunity to use Merrilee Street for some type of large-scale community event. And we'll talk more about Merrilee Street on the next slide. So, actually, sorry, first we'll talk about the park itself. So this would be a really great opportunity for some kind of pop-up or temporary space. We heard a lot in our public engagement that performance is really important, and there's this history and this tradition of concerts in the park. However, the band shell is quite large. You need a lot of production and a big audience to kind of fill the space. So it's not suitable for a lot of smaller community arts groups. And folks really feel as if that's a gap in the area, that there's not a lot of spaces for folks to kind of bring their smaller productions. So there's an opportunity to use the park to create some kind of something that could be temporary or pop up. Again, that could be shared amongst community groups, that could be sort of managed collectively. And then Merrilee Street. So already, when we were observing this area, there are some pop-up street vendors who already park trucks or vans along that avenue or that street, and it's relatively there's not a ton of traffic because again, it's a huge residential area up against the side of park. So we thought this could be a really great location for some type of large scale community event, like some kind of, makers market or a cultural festival during a cultural holiday, that kind of thing, because it seems like it would be relatively feasible to block that street off. It's also not like a key thoroughfare, so it wouldn't be restricting traffic flow. And then you would also have the park right there for folks to access. So those are the site opportunities. And then part of this work was also looking at recommendations for the accrued funds. So we wanted the recommendations to reflect the rest of the plan, to kind of give some specific opportunities that are appropriate fit for those funds that the committee can kind of consider once this work is adopted. So we thought, we kind of picked four we thought were the most relevant and potentially impactful. So the first one is using the funds to seed new cultural offerings and possibility, right? So this is, trying to, get businesses or property owners to match, to kind of contribute to it and to, like, for example, if there was going to be some kind of street fair or makers market, getting folks to really want to participate in that and partner to make it happen. There is also the option to allow the current funds to continue to accumulate over time. They could be saved to build a larger pool for future uses or larger scale projects. The current amount of the fund is around 135,000, so it's a significant amount of money, but it's not quite enough to do something really large scale. So there is the option to sort of let the funds continue to accumulate. The third option would be to work with the Department of Cultural Affairs in administering those funds for local community arts organizations for grants for either projects or general operating, or kind of general support. And that would, there are a number of community arts organizations that are in the ecosystem adjacent to Warner Center, not necessarily within the bounds, but that serve that general area. Zawadi Cultural Collective being one of them. So that's also an option. And the fourth option is really to use the funds to fund a one-time high impact project. So it wouldn't be a large scale project necessarily, but it is enough money to potentially commission a portable pop-up type of platform or stage, a smaller piece of public art, or another option that we talked about was the idea of using the funds to create some kind of event aggregator or arts calendar that could address that issue of awareness, right? To help folks understand what the potential amenities are. And next slide. And so we have one slide that's just the conclusion that just kind of sums up, our sort of parting thoughts about the development of Warner Center's cultural identity. We really, feel strongly that this camp charts a course for this area to become a regional cultural destination that reflects the communities that make the area what it is. The master plan, envisions a district that's alive with cultural energy, where residents, visitors, creators, feel welcome, connected, inspired. They feel as if they have access to spaces for making, for creating, and for convening. And we feel strongly that this vision can be realized with the participation of local residents, artists, entrepreneurs, and organizations. So again, that was why we've really focused on that idea of partnerships, because we think that that is going to be really crucial to the success of this plan. And I believe we wanted to just quickly acknowledge all of the folks who've, contributed to this. So again, we're really, really grateful to Council District 3, Bob Blumenfeld's office for hosting some of our sessions, and providing, great, wonderful hospitality. Really grateful to both the city planning team and cultural affairs, and of course our committee. And then we also wanted to give a shout out to Valley Cultural Foundation for allowing us and welcoming us to engage with folks during the summer concert series. And I'm now going to turn it back over to Priya to give a quick overview on next steps.
Thanks, Holly. So next steps, if we can go to the next slide, we're really would love to hear your feedback. I know we're going to have time for Q&A, but we do have a draft of the camp on the project website. The link is dropped here in the chat. And so we welcome, any questions that maybe we don't get to at today's meeting, or if you have a comment, please feel free to reach out. You can do it we have like a comment sheet on the project website, and you're also welcome to email Courtney Schoenwald from City Planning. Her email is here. We did just note that we wanted to put some time frame for collecting comments, but this is not the last and only time that you can provide feedback on the draft camp. So that kind of leads us to next steps. So as I mentioned in the intro, the Cultural Amenities Master Plan is required to be approved by City Planning Commission before it can then go into effect. So kind of stay tuned for the date. We don't have a date as of yet for City Planning Commission. So if you'd like to be notified once the date is secured, please sign up just to join our interested party list. Again, you can do that through our project website, and just stay tuned. We will definitely notify interested folks when we do have that meeting date secured. So I'd also welcome people to, maybe of a stakeholder that would be interested in providing feedback on the draft camp. Please feel free to share the draft with them, just our project website too. So, we'd really encourage more people to provide feedback if this is of interest. So with that, I'll hand it over back to Holly, and we'll just, open it up for people who maybe have some questions.
Yeah, so you can put your question in the chat, or raise your hand through the button at the bottom of your screen. There should be a little icon to raise your hand. Any questions, comments, observations? Well, again, if something comes to mind later, there's opportunities to reach out to the folks at the city and share your input that way. I guess there are no questions.
Hi, Holly. Sorry, this is Courtney. I just quickly want to, we have a couple callers on this, and so I want to note if you're calling by phone, if you want to raise your hand, you can press *9, and that would be a way that we would know you'd want to make a comment. Otherwise, you can use, anyone who's calling through the app can use the raise hand button. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Well, I don't believe there are any questions. Not sure if we should give it one more moment. Again, thank you for joining us tonight, and yeah, we look forward to anyone who wants to share their input after this is over through November 26th. And Courtney just put the link in the chat for you, as well as her contact information. And again, this presentation will be made available. So if you want to share it or revisit it, you're welcome to do so. Okay, I think that's everything. Priya or Courtney, is there anything else before we say goodnight?
I don't think so. If we can move to the next slide, this is just, again, this is right here. Now, this is the direct link. And to our project website, you can find a copy of the draft Cultural Amenities Master Plan. In the next week, we will post a recording. So again, if you know of any other stakeholders that maybe weren't able to attend today, that's something that could be widely shared if you know anyone who would be interested. And then also on the project website, that's where you can submit additional comments, join the interested party list. But we just want to thank you for taking the time to join. Thank you to Holly, Erica, and Tasha. Also Felicia and Tanya from Department of Cultural Affairs, and Elizabeth from Councilmember Blumenfeld's office. And yeah, again, just for all of you taking the time to join today.